Welcome to Great Lakes Sasquatch, Squatch fans. Today's story is from Jackson County, Illinois. It is just about everything you could want in a Bigfoot story. Strange howls, camping, bipedal footsteps, and a hammock. If you enjoyed today's encounter story, please stomp on that like button, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you can get more content just like this. Now, here's today's encounter story. Bigfoot slapped my hammock. This encounter occurred at Red Cedar's primitive site. It is located about a half-mile west of Shiloh Road and roughly 2 miles east of State Route 51. This is near Maconda, Illinois, in Jackson County. There's one primitive campsite on Red Cedar Trail at Giant City State Park. It rests about midway through the trail, no matter which direction you hike the 12-mile loop. The primitive campsite is very remote and surrounded by dense forests, lakes, and ponds. On October 12th, 2020, me, my wife, and another hiking buddy, a female, had just hiked 7 miles from the entrance of Red Cedar Trail at Giant City State Park to the primitive campsite where we set up our sleeping arrangements. My wife set her tent against the northwest part of the site. I was sleeping in a hammock and cocoon with a hammock tarp as my shelter southwest of her. My friend was also in a hammock tarp setup southeast of my wife's tent. After setting up our sleeping arrangements, we started a fire with some fell wood that we found laying around the site. Once the fire was going good, we sat down and reconstituted some dehydrated food that we hiked in. We drank tea and ate until our bellies were full. Afterward, me and my wife went to bed while my friend stayed up and played on her phone. After a few minutes, she went to bed as well. To be perfectly transparent, I want to share a detail which may be of use to critics, but I know better as it relates to my story. Where I had my hammock, walnuts occasionally fell from the tree and hit my tarp and rolled onto the campsite grounds. This was a common event and one I'm used to hearing as an avid hiker. I'm no novice to forest sounds and behaviors. The sky was clear, the temperature in the low 70s, and the humidity was fairly high. The night progressed and the fire burned out. I remember poking my head out of the cocoon and looking at the fire to see how dim it was becoming. Because the campsite was so remote, I knew it would soon be pitch black. I remember a walnut falling from the tree and striking my tarp. It rolled off into the darkness and found its resting spot. The fire grew dimmer and dimmer until I grew bored of watching it. I zipped myself within the cocoon and fell asleep. Sometime between midnight and 3 a.m., a loud thud woke me from my sleep. Maybe another walnut, I thought. Only it wasn't. It couldn't have been. Nothing ever hit the ground. Nothing rolled away off of my pitched tarp. My heart raced. As I said before, I am an avid hiker-camper, and I always look out of my hammock and under my tarp to see what's in the cap. This time was different. I froze and couldn't move. It was like an involuntary fear that I've rarely experienced. I stayed that way until I calmed down, but never mustered the courage to look outside of my cocoon. The next morning, the first thing my wife tells me was that a bipedal creature was walking around her tent last night. My friend said, "Mine too." I tell them, "Something slapped my shelter." I go on to explain that it wasn't a walnut that fell on my tarp because it never hit the ground. My wife then tells us both that she heard 2 howls several minutes later and that they were about 15 minutes apart. According to her, the howl paused at a very high pitch, broke into 2 small howls, paused again, and then there were 2 more small howls. That repeated itself another time. Me and my friend did not hear that, likely because we had fallen back to sleep. We left that campsite knowing we had an unexplainable experience. Although my friend is hesitant to believe it was the big guy, she does not deny that something with 2 legs was walking around her that night. As for me, I remain convinced that something slapped my tart. My wife believes it was because I was a man, while her and my friend were female. Regardless, something with 2 legs entered our camp in the dead of night in pitch blackness. It left us unharmed, but fearful to look outside. We all shared that sense of fear and dread that we felt, but left the park not seeing the big guy. 2 of us believed we were in close proximity to it. BFRO investigator Chris Callahan interviewed the witness. Here's that report. I spoke to the witness and his wife via the telephone, and the following info may be added to the original report. The 3 campers were in a triangle formation while asleep in their individual hammocks and tent. The campfire and picnic table were in the middle of them. The male witness is a 10-year police veteran, 4-year USMC veteran, and has worked in a maximum security prison for over 2 decades. He's also an avid outdoorsman who hikes and camps the Appalachian Trail twice per year. When his hammock was slapped, he awoke and was wide awake with his heart pounding. Due to his background, this is not a man that scares easily, and knew right away that this was no walnut strike. I next spoke to the co-witness, the wife. She stated that the bipedal footsteps walked up to her tent, checked it out from all sides, then moved on to her friend's tent, and finally to her husband's hammock where the slap occurred. This whole sequence was brief and did not last long. The first howl occurred within a few minutes of the footsteps' departure, while the second one occurred about 15 minutes following the first. They were both the same and described as a siren with a woo-woo at the end. Brief pause, and then another woo-woo. It was a very, very strong and deep sound, and the direction it was heard from was where the footsteps walked away from camp. Prints were searched for in the morning, but due to the leaves being stuck to the ground, due to moisture, nothing was found. No odor was smelt, and there was no food left out overnight at the campground. Chris is a professional fire captain and EMT. He holds a BA in history and anthropology, an MA in historical archaeology, and has attended numerous public and private expeditions. Thank you so much for watching Great Lakes Sasquatch. If you enjoyed today's encounter story, please stomp on that like button, subscribe, share, and click the notification bell so you can get more content just like this. Also, check out our website at greatlakessasquatch.com. If you have a Sasquatch encounter from the Great Lakes region that you would like to share, you can submit it to us online at greatlakessasquatch.com. Check out our description box for links to some of our favorite Bigfoot channels and Squatchy friends. Hiker Dave, N.E. Bigfoot, Washington Bigfoot, Bigfoot and Beyond, PacWest Bigfoot, Bigfoot Case Files, and Cam over at Dixie Cryptid. Have a great day and happy squatching!